Hello, and welcome to my GIS502 project on rasterizing highways and the areas in between them. My name is Alex Arica, and I'm going to walk you real quickly through my project. This report is not the most interesting part of my project. This is the write-up where I get very technical. The fun part is when I take a look at the actual layers I've created. Aside from a copious number of test layers and some fair bit of metadata, the actual results are what's the most interesting. So the question I was trying to answer is there a pattern with Toronto's highways? And the answer is yes. I started off by actually hand creating the highway features I wanted to use. They're not perfectly drawn because I was somewhat zoomed out, but they're I'd say 90% accurate to how the actual highways go. I did cut them off when they went past the intersections, the respective highway intersections, So I didn't include the east end of the city over here. That majorly takes out the 401 east. Technically, the 407 is not even in Toronto. It's north of Steele. It's north of the border. But overall, we have this picture where the lateral highways along the city, which are the largest and most used and most talked about, seem to be the longest, while the ones that run vertical are generally shorter, with some of them being quite small. And I wanted to investigate this properly. So what I did is I went into ArcGIS Pro and I made these line vectors of the highways into rasters and then ran basic zonal statistics. And I thought, wow, these results are actually exactly what I expected. The longest highways are the largest ones. The moderately large ones are the moderately long ones, and the small ones are also the shortest. And that makes total sense when you think about it, because the more a highway is used, the wider it has to be. And the longer a highway is, the more people use it, and the more ranges of possible trip routes you have along it. So in that sense, it makes complete sense that there's a direct correlation between length and height. And of course, because I cut out the east part here in Scarborough, it's not entirely accurate. You can make a very good argument that the South Highway here, the Gardiner, is actually a medium highway. It's not that long, although it is large. But in terms of the center core of the highway network, where they're all actually connected in this sort of square shape, it is one of the larger ones, and it is one of the longer ones as well. Now, I wanted to go a little bit further and add a bit more meat to my project, so I did the second thing. I started off by looking at the areas in between the different highways. I first made a buffer, which you can see when zoomed out, to figure out what parts of the city are generally best serviced by highways, pretending that the buffer is visible through this layer, or actually I'll just shut it off, really. You can see that most of the city, except the east side and a bit of the south, have a decent number of highways around them. There's a bit of a gap here near the Steele's border and another gap around Silverthorne, ignoring the small William R. Allen Highway because it is relatively insignificant. Just watching the time here, folks. I'm at 3 minutes. So what I did is I drew up these area polygons using the existing highway lines I had drawn, and I ran zonal statistics on these two once I rasterized them. And what I found is predictable, but what's fun is because William R. Allen is not a highway that goes end to end between other highways, it's not actually included as a polygon here. So you take a look at the breakdown, you end up having this relatively large chunk of southwest Toronto that doesn't seem to be particularly well serviced, and this northern area that's only somewhat. The northwest corner is very well serviced, and that's easy to tell because there's so many highway junctions there, while the east end of the city really has very little. It's just sort of one highway with 401, then if you go a bit out to Markham, where Sniget College is, you get 407. But that's it. So most of the city actually doesn't have that many highways, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe add one along here if it wasn't for things like, where do you put it when there's buildings in the way and parks and so on, and would it just add to the congestion and the pollution and noise and whatever else we already have in the city? And yeah, those are good counterpoints. Having more highways is not always a plus. There are some bad things to it. For instance, when you have a lot of highways around you, you have a lot more traffic. You are going to have a hard time sleeping at night if you're right on the back of a highway where you live. You have a higher risk of accidents and drunk drivers as well in this area because of the ease of access the highways provide. But overall, you get a sense that this map and its parts tell you that the city is best served going east to west, and it's much better served along the north, centered around 401. And that answers the main questions I wanted to get. How well are Toronto's highways serving Toronto, and does there need to be a change? And I'd say it's moderately good, but it could be better. If you really want to add more highways, you could. Would I recommend it personally? Not really, maybe no. But it's definitely an idea to look at, and I thought it was interesting to see how raster statistics could help me figure this out. Thank you for watching and or listening. Take care.